إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه بعد. One of the most difficult things to deal with is introductions. And whenever I'm introduced, I always think, well, they're talking about somebody else, but then it turns out to be me. I hope that at least some of what you heard, I am able to live up to that. I want to be brief because it's been a long time and now they're distributing food, so that is, I think, a sign that I should be brief. So therefore I'm going to be very brief. I don't think there is any point in talking for a long length of time anyway, so I should be very brief. First and foremost, when I was coming into this hall, from there I heard this term survival of the fittest. And I saw several of the other eminent speakers repeat that term, survival of the fittest, and of saying to you that you should therefore be the fittest. I do not disagree with them, but I want to propose to you two facts about this law, survival of the fittest. The first fact of the law of survival of the fittest is that that is the law of the jungle. It is not the law of civilization. The law of civilization and the law of Islam is to help the weak to survive. And therefore my submission to you is that by all means be the fittest, but by being the fittest, if you are not helping others to survive, then you are doing yourself and society a disfavor. Now this is borne out by some other facts. We talked about GDP, gross domestic product, which is basically revenue of countries. If you look at GDP and compare it to revenue of companies, of multinational organizations, you find that Walmart alone has a gross revenue. In 2016, 2015, Walmart's gross revenue was 489, close to $500 billion, which is a quarter of $1 billion. The GDP of India 2016 is 2 trillion, which is 4 times that, which means Walmart alone accounts for 25% of the GDP of one of the largest nations in the world. And that's one company. What does that mean? What it means is the GDP of India, gross revenue of India, so to speak, is 2 trillion, but India is number 1 country in terms of absolute poverty. Number 1 in the whole world. Absolute poverty is not sub-Saharan Africa, it is India. Number 2 is Nigeria, and the absolute poverty numbers of Nigeria are 50% of India, meaning that India is twice as many poor people as Nigeria, number 1 in absolute poverty. How do you equate these two things? Law of the jungle, survival of the fittest. GDP does not give you an idea of the well-being of the nation. To give you an idea of the well-being of the nation, you need other figures. You need figures of, for example, the distribution of wealth in the country. You need economic indicators which tell you how individual people and families are surviving, not the final bottom line number of the number of people in the country. To give you another very good example, the United States has a GDP, an economy that is about 7 to 8 times the size of India. The US economy is about 14 to 15 trillion dollars. But 50% of the people of the United States live below the poverty line, earning less than their minimum wage, even with 2 adults working per family. So you have a country which has the highest GDP in the world, and it has 50% of the population which is living below the poverty line. You know why that is important? Because those 50% elected Donald Trump. Seriously, that is why it's important. So if you think that poor people can be ignored and that they will just disappear, they will not disappear. To give you another implication on this, one of the greatest technology breakthroughs is self-driving cars and self-driving trucks. long-haul self-driving trucks in the US, 16-wheelers. You know the first impact of that? Just to help you understand GDP and distribution of wealth. The first impact of that is that this, if it is implemented, will kick up the GDP of the US even more, because the amount of profit will be more, the amount of revenue will be more, and so on. So the GDP will go up. But what it will do simultaneously is it will put 2 million truck drivers out of work. They have families, they have children, they have houses, house rents to pay, they have to live. How? You said retrain. In what? Most of them have minimum education. They can drive a highly complex, highly complicated truck. Try driving a 16-wheeler and you know what I am talking about. They can do that job very well, but they cannot do anything else. A lot of them are middle-aged. What do you do with them? And that's why I say survival of the fittest is the law of the jungle. So you decide if you want to be a jungle animal or if you want to be a human being. And if you want to be a human being and a Muslim on top of that, then you forget about survival of the fittest. You think about helping the weak to survive. If you do that, then alhamdulillah you will stand tall in the world and you will be good before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you go to meet Him. If you don't do that, then you will win the rat race, and the problem with winning the rat race is you are still a rat. To give you some other indicators to think about in terms of wealth and power, and the reason I'm saying is my graduation was from Osmania University Nizam College in History, Political Science and Urdu. And then I went to work in South America in the Amazonian rainforests in a mining company for 5 years. Then I came back and I worked in the tea gardens for 2 years. And after that I went to Ahmedabad, I got an MBA from there and I worked for another 10 years. So I've got 16 years of hands-on work experience, plus an MBA and various things, and then I qualified in other certifications in other HR areas from Carnegie Mellon and other places in the US and the UK. So I'm talking to you from that perspective, not from the perspective of doctors and engineers. My father was a doctor, so I know quite a lot about the medical field. I was invited to be the keynote speaker at the Islamic Medical Conference of Africa in South Africa last year in Cape Town. So that's the other thing which I am talking about as far as the medical field is concerned. So I've got a good idea about that. Now, to give you an idea about the law of the jungle and survival of the fittest, I don't know if you are aware, but India has the dubious distinction of being the most organized place in the world for medical malpractice. Absolutely beautifully organized for medical malpractice. Now you are qualifying, all those who are qualifying as doctors, if you don't stand up and say, I will not indulge in medical malpractice, you will also get sucked into the system, and my question then is, of what good is that to anybody? I was absolutely delighted to see that some of you opted to study in rural medical colleges rather than the cities. One of the things we know about medical graduates is that they do their best to avoid the 2 years of rural service. My question is why? If you are focused on the development of the weak, if you are really focused on alleviating sickness and suffering, you should not run from rural service, you should opt for rural service for all your life. My wife's father, my father-in-law, who recently passed away at the age of 93, Dr. Abdur Rahman, his father was Dr. Shahnawaz, and many of you came from Osmania Medical College. Dr. Shahnawaz was one of the founder members of Osmania Medical College. He was a mufti and a medical doctor, and he translated pharmacology and medical physiology books into Urdu. Dr. Abdur Rahman spent 25 years in rural service in a place called Jagtial in Karimnagar district, when Jagtial was a village. His whole service. He retired from there and went off to the UK where he came from, and then that's where he passed away this year. So I am saying to you that if you are medical doctors, then hold Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the witness to what you do, because Allah is the witness whether you agree or not. And I'm sure you agree. Hold Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the witness to what you do, and talk about alleviating the suffering of people, and don't get sucked into the trap and the net of medical malpractice, which is absolutely rampant in this country. To give you some idea about the reality of wealth and power. I'm not talking about making some money and buying a couple of cars. That's not wealth. I'm talking about wealth as in who runs the world. There are 7 things that you need to think about. Number 1, who owns the Arctic and the Antarctic and what is underneath that? Not who owns the Middle East. The Middle East is irrelevant. The Middle East is completely irrelevant. Oil has no meaning anymore. Because especially with the coming up of alternate energy, oil has lost complete significance. Middle East is the hub of activity for other reasons, not because of oil. So who owns the Arctic and the Antarctic and what is underneath that? Number 2, where are the mega cities of the world located in? Which countries? Because those mega cities are the cities that run the economies of the world. Number 3, global connectivity across the world. Which is the hub? It's not India. Europe is the hub of global connectivity. Even though 80 to something, 85% of IT engineers are Indian in origin, we don't control the connectivity of the world, and you might like to ask why. Number 4, movement of people across the globe. Where are the people coming from? I'm not only talking about refugees, I'm talking about where does the labor force come from? Africa, India, Mexico, Philippines, and China. Number 5, who controls the natural resources has geopolitical power in the world. And you know what is the number 1 natural resource that is necessary to control? Quick one, tell me, what is the number 1 resource? Renewable water, not people. Renewable water. The future wars of the world will be fought on water, not on anything else. And we hope that that will not happen because people will have the sense to share it. Number 6, supply chains bind the world. And that's what I was talking about, the power of the MNCs, the power of the multinational corporations. GE, General Electric, has a gross revenue that is 1.5 times the GDP of Bangladesh, of the whole country. Walmart has a gross revenue which is 4 times the GDP of Bangladesh. Organization. So the president of Walmart has more power than the head of state of Bangladesh. It's not politicians who rule the world. It's multinational corporations. And number 7, trade power. Preferred trading nation. The United States is preferred trading nation in 56 countries. China in 124 countries. My brothers and sisters, I'm not talking to you as Muslims. I have to justify my turban. So I'm talking to you now as Muslims. We Muslims especially are inflicted by 3 corrosive, toxic beliefs. We are inflicted by 3 corrosive, toxic beliefs. Sorry to take the smile off your face. I think you had enough smiles for the day. Everyone was applauding you. I applaud you myself. I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted to see the kind of results that MS has brought. I have been associated with Latif Bhai for many years. I always thought I was his spiritual leader, but obviously I'm not. So he went somewhere else, but that's good. Wherever he went, it got him a good head start. So the point is that I am very happy to see the results. But like Khan Sahab said, like Mr. A.K. Khan said, the pencil needs sharpening. And I take great delight in sending you into deep depression, into sharpening you. So don't go into depression. Think about it as sharpening. You need it, right? Yes or no? Yes. The world loves punishment. 3 toxic, corrosive beliefs. Number 1, self-congratulation. We congratulate ourselves for achievements which are not ours. For example, you will hear many lectures about the contribution of Muslims to the scientific community of the world. Every single one of them perfectly true. But tell me, who was Ar-Razi to you? Are you Ar-Razi? Was he your father? Is he your uncle? Even if he was your father or uncle, makes no difference, because that's your father and uncle. Are you Ar-Razi? Are you going on the path of Ar-Razi? Are you going on the path of Ibn Sina? Because if you are not, then the achievements of Ar-Razi and Ibn Sina are self-congratulation for something that you had no part of. First, corrosive belief. And we support that by cherry-picking history. Ask yourself, how come when you talk about the history of the Banu Umayyah, and that's why I graduated in history, and I strongly recommend to you, read history. And in history, read biographies. Very, very important. Biographies are real stories of real people. Ask yourself why, when you are taught the history of the Banu Umayyah, or when your speakers from various platforms talk about the history of the Banu Umayyah, ask them, why is it that they talk about only one Khalifa, which is Umar bin Abdul Aziz? What happened to the rest? You're talking about 300 something years of history. What happened to all of that? Ask yourselves and ask the people who speak to you when they speak about the history of the Banu Abbas, the Abbasis. How come they speak of one Khalifa, which is Harun Rashid? What about Mamun al-Rashid, his son, who funded and supported the Mu'tazila? And I can give you a long list of people. How come we don't do that? And I can give you a long list of the cherry picking that we do from history. Now that is the finest way of ensuring that you learn nothing from history. Because the only use of history is to take lessons from it to apply it to your life. Otherwise, it's a bunch of stories. Asatirul Awwaleen, the Quran says, stories of old people. Who cares? Self-congratulation. Number 2, corrosive belief. A sense of entitlement. I must get it because I am me. I must get it because I am Muslim. Allah did not create the world like this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَأَلَّيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. Allah did not say, وَأَلَّيْسَ لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. Allah said, وَأَلَّيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. Same law applies to everybody. Allah said, there is nothing for a human being, irrespective of whether he is Muslim or not Muslim, same law applies, like the laws of fundamental laws of physics. Gravity applies to anyone who is in free fall. Just because you are a Muslim, it doesn't mean that if you do not have a parachute that you will still survive if you jump from 10,000 feet. You won't. You will meet Mother Earth and you will become part of her. So the point is that, like the fundamental law of gravity and thermodynamics and aerodynamics and so on and so forth, the fundamental law of success is, for a human being, there is only that which he and she works for. No sense of entitlement. We have a huge sense of entitlement. And out of the sense of entitlement comes the sense of feeling discriminated against. You say you are discriminated against because you are Muslim. I say, yes, you are right. But I have Brahmin friends who say we are discriminated against because we are Brahmin. Are they right or wrong? Of course they are right. I have Dalit friends, I am on the board of several Dalit organizations, who say we are discriminated against because we are Dalit. Are they right or wrong? Of course they are right. So big deal. Big deal. You understand that discrimination is a part of life. Everybody has got discrimination at some point in time. I am not supporting it. I think it is lousy. I think it's nasty. I think it stings. But it is there. So what to do? You want to sit and cry? Sit and cry. But if you want to say, I don't care, whoever is discriminating or not discriminating, we are going to put people there who you have to take because they are number one choice for what you need. Which is your favorite car? Anybody? Quick. Lamborghini? Do you know who makes Lamborghini? Volkswagen? Muslim, non-Muslim? Do you care? You don't care what? Four-letter word. I can't say it because of my turban. You get my point? You don't care, you know what? Because the car is number one in the world. At least according to you. Right? That is the rule of life. Nobody gives a damn whether you are Muslim or not Muslim as long as you are creating excellence. So the thing to do is, forget discrimination, think excellence. Many of you topped exams and so on and so forth. Right? Where is the discrimination? When the examination papers were being scored, did they say, no, here is a Muslim girl, cut her out? Did they do that? No. If you are excellent, I always tell people, I do leadership development consulting. I tell people, if you are competing, you are a fool. I tell people, I forget about winning competition. That's idiotic. Only fools compete. You know what sensible people do, clever people do? They leverage themselves out of the competition. So you have no competitors. If somebody wants you, you are the only choice in the world. No competition. Only fools compete. Why do you want to compete? For what? No need. Leverage yourself to a position where there's no need to compete. Whatever you provide. If you are a doctor, engineer, civil servant, this, that, what not. You are the number one choice. There ain't nobody like that in the world. Do that for yourself. So, having talked about the diseases, I must give you the cures and then I'm done and gone. Number one cure, look in the mirror. Face yourself. As they say, I have seen the enemy and he is me. Look in the mirror. Forget everybody else. Me. If I am not succeeding, it's not the fault of the Jews, it is not the fault of RSS, it is not the fault of BJP, it's not the fault of your grandmother, my grandmother, it is my fault. Look in the mirror. Face yourself. Number two, accept that you need to change. Accept that we need to change, because then only you will be prepared for the long haul. All change by definition is painful, and you will not do it unless you are convinced that you need it. Number three, accept that fundamental laws apply to everyone equally. There is no preference. Number four, get prepared to invest significantly. Money, time, learning, knowledge. I was very, very happy when a couple of you were introduced here to say that so-and-so spends his time coaching others. That guy who does that is the smartest guy on the face of the planet, because he knows that's the best way to learn. The best way to learn is teach others. I hope there are more and more and more of you like that, who give your time for the sake of the nation, not only community, nation. Everyone but everyone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about the Muslims? Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. Allah said, you are the best of people and you have been selected for the benefit of an-nas, for the people. Allah did not say you have selected for the benefit of Muslims. You Muslims have been selected for the benefit of the people, for the benefit of the Hindu and the Christian and the Sikh and the atheist and the Jew and the this one and the that one must benefit from you and me. If they are not benefiting, we are toxic, we will be eliminated, because we are not fulfilling the purpose of our creation. And if we are fulfilling the purpose of our creation, believe me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will support you, Allah will protect you, and Allah will create supporters and protectors for you from the same people who you thought were your enemies. They will become your best and closest friends and protectors. And finally, which MS is doing, that's something that we have been, I've been talking to them for quite a long amount of time, and they are doing that to some extent. And I think Misbah was telling me about this while coming here. So I said to him that, I said many things to him. So he said, अब तक तो हम तारीफ ही सुनते थे, अब आपसे तो कुछ और ही सुनना पड़ रहा है. So I said, get all your curriculum developers together, call me, I will demolish everything, then you can start from scratch. So the whole point is not that you are doing a bad job, you are doing a great job, but everything has to be improved. And since I am the grandmother of this integrated education theory, he told me something which I am going to repeat, and he can tell me if he said something is right or not. He said 2011 I talked about integrated education, no individual subjects all together. You teach physics through chemistry and chemistry through biology. And he says today Finland has introduced that system in the world. So I said, he's telling me only now I accept that you are smart. So it took him about 6 years to understand that. So alhamdulillah, that's good. But the point I'm saying is that integrated education, integrate the education, not Islam as a piece and something else as a piece, bring them together. When you go in the world as one integrated human being, a person whose heart is Muslim, a person who's in the world to spread goodness all around, and you are using the power of science and technology to do that. I was absolutely delighted to see the number of young ladies who are in medicine and who are becoming doctors. We desperately need that. We need more and more and more. I was happy and very surprised that MS seems to have their toppers as boys, and I'm surprised because the global average is women do far better than men. So what happened to you guys? You got to beat all of them, right? Very good. So alhamdulillah, I told you I'll be brief. And I think that looking at the guys in front here, they have finished their food packets which they were eating. So I think now it's time for me to, nobody's offered me any food, but anyway, I suppose it's there, otherwise, you know. So Jazakumullah khairan, I'm very, very happy to, I told you all three. No? I mentioned two, I didn't mention the third one. Maybe the third one is not so bad, huh? Third corrosive belief. Well, I think I mentioned the third one in passing, but I call it magic. I call it magic. And the reason I'm saying magic is because Muslims seems to believe that things will happen just like that, just by wishing. So we talk about, for example, we talk about grand visions, you know, my vision for such and such a year. And then you say, well, how is this vision going to be achieved? We don't know. Do you have a plan? Take many of our organizations, right? I won't name them, but take many of our organizations. You go to them and ask them, do you have a strategic plan for the next 5 years? Do you have them? They don't have them. They have people who will come and do what हमारी उर्दू ज़बान बड़ी खूबसूरत है, हम उर्दू बोलते हैं धुआंधार तकरीर किया, यानी तकरीर में बहुत धुआं उठा, तो धुएं के उठने से क्या होता है कि ओझल हो जाता है, जो हकीकत है वो छुप जाती है. तो धुआंधार तकरीर के माने ये है कि हकीकत आपकी आंख से उड़ गई. हाँ भाई, बड़ी धुआंधार तकरीर धुआंधार तकरीरों से कुछ नहीं होता. You need actual action. For example, he was telling me, Mirza was telling me about, he said, we have done research. I said, hold on a second. What research? Which control group? What was the hypothesis of the research? Where did you test that? What is the statistical validity of that research? Then was there a peer review done on that research? Where was that published? If these 5 questions are not answered to me, then according to me, that's not research. That's anecdotal study. Take it or leave it. That's what I mean by rigor. Without rigor, you don't get anything. Otherwise, you are believing in magic. And you know, believing in magic is haram anyway. No amount of positive thinking, no amount of inspirational speeches will help you. If you are standing at the bottom of a staircase, you still have to climb the stairs if you want to get to the top. If you stand at the bottom of the staircase and say, I am very positively thinking I am going to be there, you will not be there. You will still be here. You have to walk up those stairs one by one. And that's the reality. Go to any of our organizations, like I said, ask them, what is your strategic plan for the next 5 years? What is your goal for the next 5 years? 0. I don't know about MS. I hope they have a strategic plan. I'm sure they have, because Abdul Latif would not be sitting here otherwise. But the point I'm saying is that very, very clear. Finally, I want to point out to this man here, because he is a classic example of the first statement I made, which is survival of the fittest is law of the jungle. So he is somebody here who does not believe in survival of the fittest. He believes in supporting the weak to survive. Otherwise, he is an engineer. He would have made his money engineering, and he would have survived very happily. and there would be no MS. His partners are also examples of that. I mean, these three guys are the first three people that I met as far as MS is concerned, and after that they never met me again. So that's I'm literally seeing them after years now. I mean, I saw him in Mumbai with at Diniyat, but these other two. And then of course Abdul Latif, he told me, you are my spiritual mentor, but today you heard something else, right? So this is dunya. This is dunya. So one must keep your eyes wide open. Don't believe what people tell you, huh? They tell you things to make you happy. So be happy, but don't believe them. But anyway, the long and short of it is, I'm saying, Alhamdulillah, you have got in the founders of this academy excellent examples for yourself to follow in looking at how can we bring about goodness for society. Follow those examples, because you are working here, you are studying here, you are looking at them on a day-to-day basis. Follow them so that you then you don't just become successful in yourself, but you also take other people along with you. A GDP is good if that GDP is distributed, I'm not saying evenly and equally, because that will never happen, but definitely at some level across the entire population. Otherwise, a GDP which looks good and the country which is poor is a sign of an extremely sick nation. Very, very sick nation. And believe me, sickness eventually results in death. If you think that poor people are just going to vanish because you want them to disappear, they will not disappear. They are human beings, they have needs which must be met from somewhere, and if you are not going to share, then that will be taken from you. Don't put yourself in that position. Make sure you take the weak people with you. Make sure you support poor people. Make sure that whatever goodness comes to you is spread in society, and believe me, the more you do that, the more you will get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jalla jalaluhu. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you great success. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you from all harm, to protect this institution from all harm. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open the horizons for you and to open the doors for you where you could not even imagine that there were doors. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help and support and protect you from all evil of this dunya wal akhirah. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.